I would like to first of all reiterate the thanks which Andrew has just offered to all of our most recent speakers and everyone who's been joining us and contributing today. We have one last intervention before we can all finally call it a day after a very long, very fascinating, sometimes quite demanding, sometimes quite exciting day of discussions. We have one last speaker who is joining us now, is Nihad Awad, who is the co-founder and executive director of the Council of American-Islamic Relations, and he has joined us as part of, again, our conference's agenda of bringing together scholars and activists and thinkers and preachers of all different kinds to share with us his own reflections on the importance of advocacy, CAIR, that is to say, the Council of American-Islamic Relations, as an example. And so if you're ready, Nihad, the floor is yours.
I'm always ready. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good evening for those who are at a different time zone from Washington, D.C., where I'm speaking. As was said, I'm Nihad Awad, the National Executive Director of CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. First of all, I would like to say Assalamu alaikum, peace be to you, and belated Eid Mubarak for those who celebrated Eid. I would like to thank Wala and her awesome team for putting together this incredible conference in a timely fashion. And I congratulate all the speakers for presenting well and sharing information, perspectives on critical issues. So as we are winding down this conference, I'm honored to give some closing remarks that hopefully are practical, stemming from my experience and my colleagues' experience at the Council on American-Islamic Relations. I'm joined today by, in this presentation, Huzaifa Shahbaz. Huzaifa, raise your hand if you're there. Huzaifa is a senior researcher at the Council on American-Islamic Relations. He handles the research on Islamophobia and the American Muslim community. He's based in California, and he works in our office also in Washington, D.C. So to start with, I hope this will be inspirational for all of you to speak about our modest experience, the Council on American-Islamic Relations in Washington, D.C. It is really the story of transformation of the American Muslim community by the transformation of two individuals, myself and another colleague, into making what became the largest American Muslim organization and the most influential American Muslim organization in the United States, probably in the West, with the size of its presence and the number of its employees and the impact it has on American Muslims and the scene. So to start with, I would like to tell you why we started the Council on American-Islamic Relations in Washington, D.C. is really to deal with the same issues that we have been dealing with, to navigate answers for critical questions. What is Islam? Is it pacifist? Is it nonviolent? And what is the justification for all of the above? These questions we struggled with, and we provided some practical answers. And my quick comment on the overall theme of this conference, and regardless of the perspectives that scholars and academicians brought to the audience, is I have based the vision of this organization on the inspiration of the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which I believe he was at points pacifist, at points he was nonviolent, and at points he used force to achieve the higher goal of pacifism, nonviolence, and so on. Because pacifism and nonviolence, I believe, there are tools and mechanisms to achieve a higher goal and objective, which is peace, stability, equality, prosperity to all people all over the world. And the fact that the Prophet, we as Muslims, we consider him as a mercy to mankind. Therefore, Islam is seen as a mercy to mankind. And to achieve this mercy, you have to provide peaceful coexistence, stability, equality, respect, dignity, and justice. So I believe that whether Islam and Muslims are seeing in one prism or the other, the ultimate objective is good and the means themselves are good. Hence, the founding of the organization. So when we founded CAIR to respond to some of these issues, to demystify Islam and to answer some of these questions, we realized that also we are a minority living in the United States. And living in the United States, we have indigenous Muslims, we have immigrant Muslims, we have second, third, and fourth generation of Muslims who always negotiate their identity. Are they Muslim? Are they American? Are they American Muslims? And if they focus their issues on demystifying and living Islam in the United States, what about the relationship between the United States and the Muslim world? Well, in the United States also we have seen pacifism in the models of many activists and historic iconic leaders in the United States. We have seen nonviolence, but also we have seen militarism. So as you can see, we have been living as Muslim Americans in this reality that combines all of these concepts and contradictions. So our organization was started in 1994. And the ultimate vision of the organization is to be a leading advocate for justice and mutual understanding. And we have focused our mission on a few items. Number one, to enhance the understanding of Islam in the United States. There is a lot of ignorance about Muslims and Islam in the US, but also there is a lot of receptivity to learning and understanding Islam if information and a good example is provided to the public. The third element is to protect the civil rights of Muslims as a minority. We will be speaking about this, and also promoting justice. And eventually, we would like to empower the American Muslim community to have the safety to succeed like other minorities and other segments of our society. We have worked on many areas, and CAIR's work has been very focused. We focus on media relations because the media is the most influential tool that educates, informs, and sometimes misinforms the public. Government relations, educating our fellow citizens and our community into advocacy, and throughout that, we have been able to provide a perspective on issues from an Islamic point of view. And in offering this perspective, we were able throughout the years, as you will see, to inspire American Muslims to become a significant, influential minority, or on the road to be influential minority. It is also important to realize that the organization has grown from 2 people into 35 offices with the headquarters in Washington, D.C. And also we have about 250 full-time employees. The organization is extremely diverse, not only within the Muslim community, but even within the larger society. We have people of the Muslim faith and outside the Muslim faith who are working in senior positions of the organization. You will be surprised to know that CAIR is probably the most diverse organization in the United States. We have about 65 spokespeople who speak on behalf of the organization, Muslims and people of other faith or no faith. They speak on behalf of the largest Muslim organization in the country. Obviously, the main division of CAIR's work has been identified as the civil rights of the Muslim community. We process more than 6,000 cases per year. We have about 60 full-time attorneys for office nationwide. And here behind the civil rights work is sure that American Muslims are treated fairly and equally. Processing these cases in the workplace, where we thousands of cases in terms of complaints of discrimination in the work. This not only happens at the hands of peers and other students, but sometimes, unfortunately, at the hands of school officials. Muslims who work in government agencies or in the public square feel at ease to contact the organization. The organization eventually issues an annual report to educate the public, the government, the courts, academia about the status of the Muslim civil rights in the United States. It is the most authentic, in fact, it is the only report of its kind on American Muslims in the United States. It tells really the stories of American Muslims. But the more important division of CAIR is really the communications, and that leads us to our advocacy. On a daily basis, CAIR, from the national office and its 35 offices nationwide, communicate, and you will be surprised to hear this, communicates with 34,000 media outlets on a daily basis. So in other words, thousands of media outlets in the United States and around the world receive daily news and statements from the organization telling the story of the Muslim community. So if you compare 2022 compared to 1994, where in 1994 there was no spokesman on behalf of the Muslim community, so-called experts on Islam would identify issues of their liking, and they used to speak on our behalf for us and about us. Today, the situation is very, very different. We speak on our behalf, we tell our own story, and we are defining what Islam is and who Muslims are. Because of the consistent work with media outlets nationwide at the local and state level and federal level, we were able to create a different image, a different reality of the Muslim community in the United States. And ultimately, the last and most important one is the government affairs work. Obviously, the United States is a superpower. It is one of the most sophisticated political systems in the world. It deals with issues at home, with discrimination, with coexistence. Now we are dealing with the rise of white supremacy, with Islamophobia, with anti-Semitism, with the great replacement theory that unfortunately has been injected not only in the debate, but in the behavior of many individuals that have serious consequences on the makeup and peaceful coexistence of the segments of our society. Not only that, but the United States is a major, if not the major player. Any policy in the United States not only impacts the lives of Americans at home, but people around the world, including the Muslim world. And that's where we at CAIR and American Muslims find ourselves in the midst of this controversy and equation, where we have to help our government to stay on the right track and to have the right relationship with the Muslim world, not through militarism and the exporting of weapons, technology all the time, but we would like the United States to have the right information and the right relations with the Muslim world and other countries of the world that is based on mutual respect and peaceful coexistence. I would like, and I envision, a world and a future where the relationship between the United States and the Muslim world will be based on mutual respect and mutual benefit and interest, and to explore the peaceful technology and the healthcare technology and science and the US aid, instead of, unfortunately, having the relationship based on military strategic alliances and conflicts in the world. We are trying to fix that, and I believe CAIR and the American Muslim community plays a major role to transform the United States foreign policy to be based more on peace, not conflict, and to be based on mutual coexistence rather than militarism and strategic alliances based on the power of the strong and the exploitation of the weak. The last thing is also we do research, because it is very important for us to understand the challenges around us, and we believe that Islamophobia, it is not only an American phenomenon, which we try to put our hands on accurately by studying the hate groups in the United States, who they are, how they are structured, how they are funded, and how do they work among themselves. And you will be surprised to know that Islamophobia is a transnational threat. It is not only a threat to American Muslims and to America itself, but if we as Americans do not put a tab on Islamophobia and the hate mongering and misinformation about Islam and Muslims in the United States, there is always overspill around the world. And we see that, unfortunately, hate mongers in Europe, in Myanmar, in many places, they are inspired by key American influencers, and some of this hate material is used as an inspiration in their manifesto, whether the massacre of Christchurch in New Zealand or the massacre that happened in Buffalo, New York a few days ago. They are considering white supremacist leaders, political leaders in our society, influential personalities in academia, in politics, in Hollywood, in the media, as their inspiration and their leaders of their movements. Whether these individuals recognize that they are being used, but definitely no one can deny the connection. So we also understand that it is important that we cannot fight Islamophobia with fear and with emotions. We need data, we need research, because America is not Islamophobic, but Islamophobia is an American phenomenon. And we need to empower our allies in the society to get this information and isolate the hate speech from their spheres and from their funding. And we were able, I would like to report this to you, we were able, because of our report on Islamophobia network in the United States, we were able to put pressure on mainstream foundations, like for example, the Ford Foundation, the Bill Gates Foundation. These foundations did give money for hate groups unintentionally or maybe unknowingly. We have put pressure on similar foundations over the United States, and we were able to deny the network of Islamophobia of $50 million last year alone. So I'm happy to report to you that our Islamophobia network and work has been, the anti-Islamophobia research and advocacy has been effective to the point that we were able to limit the oxygen and space where these organizations operate. Now, globally, we also believe that American Muslims, though a minority, we should have an influence on our diplomatic relations between the United States and some of those countries. We were able to work with our members of Congress who are allies on this issue to draft and pass a legislation to establish the office at the United States State Department to monitor and combat Islamophobia globally, similar to the Office of anti-Semitism, the combating and monitoring anti-Semitism at the State Department. We have managed to pass this bill in the House of Representatives, and now there is a bill in the U.S. Senate. We hope it will pass. President Biden promised to sign it into law. If this happens, and I hope it will become a reality, we will end up with an office at the State Department that will issue an annual report on Islamophobia globally, whether in Myanmar, China, France, wherever the Muslim community is persecuted because of its religious identity and deprived its constitutional protections and rights because of its faith. we believe that using the awesome power, diplomatic and economic power of the United States to leverage change of behavior of those countries of concern is of paramount importance to us and Muslim minorities around the world. I hope that Muslim minorities in Canada, in Europe, in other places can follow suit and see that regardless of the distance that we have among ourselves, that we are all interconnected, and our efforts in the United States will benefit your communities, and your communities and efforts in your localities will be also beneficial to our existence here and to the Muslim communities around the world to provide peace and security and respect and protection for all people. I would like to go to the last slide here and say, the one before the slide, the one before the last, is as a result of empowering the Muslim community throughout the 27 years past, we have been able to work with many allies in the United States and even inspire communities around the world. If we can go to the next slide, Huzaifa. Yeah. We have been able, as you can see from this beautiful slide, over the years, we have managed to create a safer space for American Muslims to feel confident, to feel proud, and not to be intimidated by fear, bigotry, and the powerful speeches and policies, whether of the former president or many networks that have been working to sideline and marginalize the Muslim community. The opposite has been happening. American Muslims, especially young people, have been feeling the pressure, but also the challenge. And they are more confident today than the previous generation to express themselves confidently and proudly with their Islamic American identity, to love their faith and love their country by presenting themselves not only as victims of Islamophobia, but as leaders and to be public servants. Every year, about 5 to 10 Muslims only used to run for public office. In the past 5 years, we have documented hundreds of American Muslims running for public office. In the past election cycle, 2020, we identified 181 Muslims who ran for public office, and 80 of them succeeded and won offices, whether at the congressional level or state house or state assembly or school board of education, or they were appointed as judges. And these are massive, I would say, landslide of the empowerment of the Muslim community. We feel today that the American Muslim community is on a trajectory to not only change its image, but it's changing its reality and the reality of the United States itself. To conclude, I also would say that this work cannot be done unless we continue to cooperate and work with academicians, public opinion molders, universities, to not only demystify Islam, but to provide access of accurate information to the public, to students, to cooperate on research, not only to counter hate against Muslims, but to provide the most accurate information about Islam and Muslims in the West and around the world. And hopefully, we will see a generation of Muslim young leaders and people of other faith who, like us and them, believe in the universal values of peace, stability, peace building, and we all take part of this. And we don't allow only minorities like the Muslim community, like the African American community, to do their fight of survival on their own. If there is any injustice, as Martin Luther King Jr. has said, if there's an injustice anywhere, it is a threat to justice everywhere. I hope that we all recognize that our global future is interconnected. Academicians, activists, civil societies are the backbone of changing that reality and provide a better future for our children and grandchildren. So thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you. If you have any question or you need any information, feel free to visit our website at CAIR.com, and my colleagues' information is here. Huzaifa Shahbaz is one of our researchers in the Washington office, and I look forward to staying in touch with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nihad. We really appreciate you making the time. I think it was quite befitting that we conclude the conference with a call for action. So we've been discussing not exclusively theory, but we've talked a lot about conceptions of pacifism and nonviolence of Islam. So it's quite refreshing to hear from you to see how we can, in fact, use our nonviolent methods in order to promote cohesion and peace between communities and for the Muslim community itself. I also want to thank Dr. Andrew, and I want to thank Dr. Tom for being here, for helping organize the conference, for thinking about these topics of peace and nonviolence in Islam. I want to thank all of the panelists that were here with us today and presented their interesting and groundbreaking research. I think we've had some very, very interesting panels. And finally, I'd like to thank those that persevered with us till the very end, from 9 till 7:30. I'd like to thank the AV team for being incredible and for staying with us. And I really appreciate you all. So thank you. One last round of applause, I guess. Goodbye, guys.